Inevitably, the more clients you serve, you will encounter a quote unquote difficult client. And in today's episode, I am going to give you some tips, some thoughts, and some strategy on how to handle that difficult client. Hey, I'm Amanda, and welcome to the Best Damn Coach podcast, where I will teach you how to coach yourself, how to coach your clients, and how to run your coaching business. The number one goal of this show, though, is to help you be the best damn coach you can be so your clients go out and tell the world about you. So let's do the damn thing. Hey coaches, before we get started on this week's episode, I want to let you in on a brand new training for you that is now live. I've been working on this behind the scenes and I'm so excited to bring it to you starting now. The coaching industry is saturated. There are so many people out there doing what you do. So the question is, how are your people going to find you? In this live training, I'm going to break it down for you simply. So if you're a coach who wants to grow their coaching business without spending all of this unnecessary money on marketing and Instagram ads and Facebook, if you're a coach who sometimes has doubt and imposter syndrome, like how are my people going to find me? Is this really something I can do to break that 6-figure mark? And if you're a coach who really just wants to be so amazing for your people and help them create results, but most importantly, you're a coach who wants to be found by your dream clients, then come join this free training where I'm going to walk you through the 3 steps necessary to make this happen so you can stand out in a crowded market. So head on over to amanda-walker.com/masterclass, and you can pick the time that best works for your schedule and learn how to stand out so that your dream clients can find you. Welcome to the Best Damn Coach podcast. I am Amanda. I'm so excited that you're here. I'm real excited about today's topic, which was inspired by a client who basically came to me and she said, save me from a really challenging client. And it turned into an extremely powerful coaching session for her. I, of course, was like, my people have to hear this because inevitably, along your coaching journey, and for anybody that serves people, you are going to come across, and I'm air quoting this if you're not watching the actual show or a clip, difficult client. And the reason I'm air quoting it is because the term difficult in general, the word difficult is highly subjective, and it would be what I call using gross language. It doesn't apply to everyone. There is no specific definition of difficult. It's really in the eyes of the beholder. And that's why I really think that this is a learning experience for you. And I hope what I have to offer around this struggle definitely lands on you and you take it into your coaching practice, your service-based your consulting practice, and you learn from it and grow and you serve your clients at a higher capacity. So I first want to talk about a core belief that I have inside of my business that I learned very early on. And I chose this thought. I like this thought a lot, so I think it often. Every client that comes to me has something to teach me. If we want to go uber deep and uber woo and spiritual, it's ultimately, I believe I was put on this earth to serve people and to coach them to a higher potential. Through coaching, I learned more about myself and I am reaching a higher potential in my life. And again, higher potential is subjective. But for me, I'm learning and becoming more the person I desired to be by serving others. And so it is my thought, my belief, if you will, that all clients, even the difficult ones, have something to teach me if I choose to see it that way. I have learned, over and over, I'll teach people, I'm like, oh, she's my projection. She's struggling with XYZ. Like, I'm supposed to be here for her right now because I've been there, I've done that, and I'm going to learn more through coaching her. Inside my classroom, when I taught, the ultimate form of retention of content, right, is the ability to teach it to somebody else. So that is always what I taught my students. Yes, you can learn and you can read, and then I'm going to ask you to turn to a partner and reteach the content because that ultimately shows me that you have quote unquote mastery of it, if such thing truly exists. We call them, I'm a master coach, but I kind of joke at that term because there's things I know a lot about, but I'm far from mastering any of it. I'm a constant work in progress and a learner I'm a learning learner, and I think you are too. And so I operate with that belief, and it might serve you. I believe it will serve you, but ultimately you get to decide if you want to own that belief or not. And it's, to me, has helped me navigate some of those situations where I would kind of quote unquote have a difficult client with a little bit more grace and a little bit more trust in the process. And so I want to say that as an underlying foundation to everything that I'm going to talk about today. So sometimes when a client comes to us, what we sometimes overlook are some of the feelings. I don't know how to describe them other than they're like these gut internal red flags. And we're all friends. We're just going to be transparent. Oftentimes, the reason we ignore some of those red flags is because money. We're like, ooh, that extra 8K would be really awesome. That extra 2K would be awesome. Nah, they won't be a problem. I can save them. That was definitely something that, like, oh, it's never worked for them before, but I'm going to be the one. I'm going to be the one that shifts them. And so one of the things that I first really encourage clients to go back to when they have identified a difficult client is, are there red flags? Are there things that you can go, hindsight's 2020, Monday morning quarterback, call it whatever you want. Are there things that you can go back and look at that from the beginning may have been an indicator, a red flag that this was not a person that was the best fit for you? So here's sometimes what it can sound like. I'm going to give you some specific examples. One of the things I started to realize inside of my health coaching practice was when a client said to me, oh, I just want to lose X pounds by this date or this thing, or I just want to have a 6-pack overnight. While that can be their goal, it wasn't the goal that I wanted to support people on because I was really looking at coaching from a practical, sustainable way. So when I heard that language, what it would do is it would cause me to vet out the lead a little bit deeper and find out why the deadline mattered. What if they didn't meet that deadline? Were they trying to be sustainable and short term? It would basically bring me to a aha red flag of like, I need to find out more information to find out if this person's really for me. And ultimately, if they were wanting that super quick fix, I knew I had another place to send them. And that always felt really good to me is, do I have a relationship with someone else that's better suited for the kind of result that they want? And I could say, I'm not a great fit for you based on what you shared. And I'm going to introduce you to somebody that I think that could really support you in a better way. This isn't, my philosophy in coaching. So don't be afraid to really hone in those red flags. Another red flag for me is somebody that says, I've hired all these coaches, I've done all these things, and it's still not working. I'm real curious, like, why isn't it working? Are you taking action? And I want to vet out the language a little bit more deeply so that I know if it's for me. Because here's the thing. I have ignored those little intuitive hits because I thought I'm going to save them, or maybe I was really excited to work with this person because they were maybe a higher profile case, or the money, I would really love that extra money. And inevitably, when I ignored the red flags, it opened up the door to more of an energy link. I was like, why didn't I listen to my gut? Oh my goodness. And it consumed so much more energy than the money was even worth. And so this really does take practice. So I hope this conversation we're having together today really illuminates for you what those could be. So you might even think about, as you're listening to this and writing down, what are the red flags? What are the things that would cause me to maybe like the hair on my neck to stick up or my ears to perk a little bit, that really are somebody that helps me understand that this is not my ideal client, and in the end may not be a best fit, and it might be more energy than it's really worth internally. And the thing about this is it's mutual. If they're not a best fit for you, you're not a best fit for them, because they're going to come in with an expectation that you're not going to be able to deliver on. And that's something that, it's beneficial for you. It's a lot easier to vet that out at the start than it is to vet that out 3, 4, 5 months in specifically. I was working the realtor in this case, one of my private coaching clients. And for her red flag was, this was somebody that hadn't really been pre-qualified. They were just in looking mode. And so we were able to determine together that moving forward, if somebody comes in that has not been pre-qualified, they're not serious enough, she's going to spend a lot of energy leading them, and it's not worth it yet. So that is tip number 1. Really get clear on what your red flags are with clients and learn how to not just make a judgment just because there's a red flag, but vet that out and ask more questions. Another tip to helping you handle a difficult client is that when somebody triggers you and there's something about that client that really irks you, For me, this is my opportunity to hold a mirror to myself and do some self-coaching around why that is. Well, let's use some examples. For example, if a client isn't taking action and you've coached them a million times and that irks you, you're like, is there a place in my life I'm not taking action? Or if maybe a client, keeps coming to a call and they're consistently late, is there a place where I'm showing up consistently late? But this is a really powerful question because for me, those triggers, and this is not just with clients, by the way, this is with your kids, your spouse, people in the world. Typically, when there is something that internally is like a little bit of a trigger warning, then I always hold a mirror to myself and just ask myself, why is this coming up for me? Is there a space in my life where I'm not finding congruency in the same topic? Because this is an opportunity for me to like feel, align, or heal, whatever word you want to use there, and make a little bit of an internal switch shift for myself so that I'm working on understanding like, okay, that person's my projection. This is, again, if I go back to my belief, everybody has something to teach me. That might be the thing that somebody's, teaching you. For instance, in business, one thing I coach around a lot is this chasing squirrels. I'll be the first to admit early in my business, I was like, squirrel, squirrel, shiny object, shiny object. And so every time that comes up, I'm a little bit like, oh, and it's like, yes, I did so much work on this in my business to get clear, drill down, let go of offers, focus on the one thing, and stay in my own lane, that I do feel that that's an area that I worked on myself as well. The next piece, another tip I have for handling a difficult client, and this is maybe a solution to start with. I'm going to talk about how to end the relationship with a difficult client in a moment if you're in it. But there's a lot we can do before the relationship even starts to make sure we've clearly vetted out and set reasonable expectations. And so a few of those things are, one, a contract. Making sure you have a contract. And I personally believe the contract should be drawn up by a lawyer who's in contract law that really is customized for your business. Sometimes coaches don't want to spend the money on this in the beginning because it feels like a big investment. But I will tell you that contract has saved me in my business multiple times. And I also had a hard situation come up once where a contract wasn't clear enough and I lost out some cash flow around it. So this could be the one piece of paper that just totally sets you up for success. And so setting up a client contract is important. That's the legal jargon, right? That protects you. And the thing about the contract, though, I will say is, we do ours digitally. So it's just signed. And I don't believe that everybody probably vets it out, if we're honest with each other, to the degree that they should. So the other thing I like to do is also create a client agreement inside my coaching relationship, specifically with my one-to-one clients. I do this. It's a higher investment. We're doing more intimate work. It's super personalized and customized. And I believe that this has really helped create flow and consistency and build extreme rapport with my clients. And that is a client agreement. And I go over this live on the call with each client from the beginning. And this agreement is simply the understandings of my expectations of them and then their expectations of me. I even ask them on the call, what's your expectations of me? I ask this in the intake questionnaire. The reason being is I'm not going to change who I am as a coach to accommodate them. I just really want to make sure that I'm already aligned with them. In the client agreement that I share some of the things that I expect of them, which is when we are on a call, I will give them a tasking assignment at the end of every session. And it is my expectation they complete that before the next session. And the caveat I tell them is if you don't, then we're not going to hold the next session. Because I want them to take action. I want them to have success. So sometimes we have to be really clear on what our expectations are. So we eliminate any of the structure, the problems that could come up down the road. And so being sure to pre-frame your expectations and how you operate as a coach, how you operate as a practitioner, how you're supporting them during the beginning part of the business. So much of the difficult stuff, the difficult client stuff is just eliminated from the start because you've already talked about all those things and those have been clearly communicated. Communication is everything. Especially, let's say this is somebody that's never coached before in an online space, or maybe you're meeting clients live. If they've never worked with a coach, they just may not know what they don't know. So if we can communicate that to them and clear that out, then it eliminates so much of the potential friction that could exist. The other thing that I like to clearly communicate ahead of time is my boundaries around communication. I will let them know in a one-to-one that I use Voxer with my one-to-one clients. I tell them when we meet. I tell them how to schedule their sessions. I tell them I do not schedule sessions for them. And I let them know that my Voxer hours are X and Y and that I don't check Voxers on the weekends. I reply starting Monday morning. And I'm very clear on that. Personally, I don't have anybody with my personal cell phone. I don't text anybody. I don't take phone calls. That's just how I've set up my business. And you can do yours anyway. But what I would encourage is the only wrong way is to not have boundaries and not be clear on what your boundaries are. So this is a great journaling assignment for you, is just to go ask yourself, what are my boundaries in business? And how do I, make sure I adhere to them? What am I going to do, right? One thing, setting the boundaries. The second, more challenging part is actually holding the boundaries over time. But I want to communicate that to my clients. So if they try to send me an emergency Voxer on Saturday morning and they're irritated that I'm not responsive, then they already know, hey, Amanda doesn't get back to me until Monday. And that's for them to kind of plan around. The same thing is just working on yourself around the need to reply boom, 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 so quick. This is one area that I find clients are constantly wanting to reply and be there immediately. So let them know what the expectation is of reply. Is it 12 hours for you? Is it 24? Is it 48? And I even create an autoresponder within my email that says, we respond in this time. If you reply on a weekend, we put family first. We will not get back to you until Monday. And that's just politely letting them know the reasonable time frame for which you plan, to support them. And again, communication is everything. So when we clarify that from the start, it makes it a much better journey for everybody involved. So much of what I talked about is kind of the belief and also the stuff to do in front. But what do we do when it's really a difficult client situation? And maybe every time you see that client coming up on your caseload, you're just feeling nervous, anxious, like you're not wanting to be there. It's not going in a direction that you really are excited about. Maybe they've communicated. So I want to talk about maybe ending a difficult client relationship when that may or may not happen in your journey. And honestly, inevitably, it's going to happen. I think the quicker you can identify this and the quicker you can, move away from it, the better both parties are going to be served. And the thing that I always want to say is go back to the contract and the agreement. And depending upon how you position that contract depends on how you end that relationship. Again, this is just based on my experience. And I've had, a couple times where I've decided that I needed to let go of a client. And honestly, each one was handled slightly different depending on the situation. I had a client who, I won't go into the details, but essentially decided to be under two coaches with different philosophies simultaneously. And I knew that was not something that I could coach around, because she came to me asking me to coach on what the other coach was asking her to do because it wasn't working for her. And so it just wasn't feeling great to me. And I gave her some options, and ultimately that did not work for her. We decided to end the relationship, and I basically prorated the rest because I decided that it wasn't a great fit. There have been times, though, where a client maybe just decided that it was not working and they weren't willing to do the tasking. There was, friction that has come up, thinking of one particular spot. And ultimately, I chose not to give the money back. And I was supported by my contract as well, because they weren't meeting the agreements of the contract. But ultimately, what I want to say to this is, whatever feels good in your body and in your heart around this is the right decision for you. If the client is difficult, quote unquote, for you, though, I really hope that you take it as a learning opportunity. And you ask yourself, what can I learn from this? How can I grow from this? How can I clean up the communication so this doesn't happen in the future? And if this is a pattern, you guys, then I really encourage you to self-reflect, because it's less about the client and it's more about yourself, right? We are all going to have these situations in our business that there's a lack of compatibility or rapport, or maybe we even did something along the way where we broke rapport early on. And if that's the case, then we as a practitioner want to take, from my perspective, the high road and support your clients, and also protect yourself and hold the boundaries around your contract. And this is kind of the struggle side that I think we talk about the highlights and all the amazing parts of coaching, but there are these opportunities that come up, and we have to have the proper protocols, the proper support in place so that we are protected and our client is protected and we walk away feeling there's like mutual compatibility in some way. But most of all, from these situations, I hope that you walk away, and I know I have, as having learned something new and being given a new perspective from which I can grow and evolve in my business. So I hope you found that valuable. Again, if you have any questions ever, feel free to send me a message at awalkmyway on Instagram or send us a message to support@amanda-walker.com. Keep serving your people and really believing that every client has something to offer you and to teach you, and no doubt that will serve you inside of your practice. So have a wonderful day. Every week, I put my heart and soul into this podcast to bring you value and to help you grow as a person and as a coach. And one of the ways, very simple ways you can return that favor is by leaving us a review. So if you haven't left us a review, head on over to Apple or Spotify, leave us a review, let us know how we're doing, let us know what content you love and which content pieces are really speaking to you now.